So, what I'm going to do at Sociologic Garden is take you on a small tour. With the sad loss of my late mother, I've inherited most of the farm, and we're just doing the legal finalisations at the moment. So, I should use it as a springboard really to invest my whole time and lifestyle onto the farm, and maybe I'm going to have to hang up my days of travelling around the world on a bicycle. Remember, I've been travelling since I went to Palestine in 2012 on a bicycle, taking my music to various parts of the continent. And my last trip was this year, carrying my mother's ashes along the west coast of Italy all the way down into Sicily. And then finally I went over to India, where I did some work at a permaculture project called Ananda Permaculture Project, which is up near Panchula. And the inspiration of seeing subtropical environments like that and realising how important the creation of soil is has spurred me on to diversify this farm to a large extent. And even though every summer things get tougher and there's less and less water around, it seems, I'm thriving on another level. On a creative level, I'm just finding solutions to everything.
First one up, the whole world on my shoulders. The embers of yesterday's fire still emitting its glow. I'd shake it up, another stick to rekindle my inner desire. Hidden flames once dormant, now relish the new day's activity.
So here we are, lychees, and I'm trying to create, along with the lemons, the mandarins, the pomegranates, the Japanese loquats, some of the wild stuff that grows there. I've been digging it out of the roadside curbs, like wild apricots, for instance, and wild almonds. And just trying to create more diversity and seeing what will survive in the next 40, 50 years here. Okay, so what you see in front of you is a load of wild apricot. It's actually a wonderful plant. And I've seen these suckers growing up everywhere, all over the place now. So they can obviously adapt to very shallow and dry conditions. On the side of the road here in a Mediterranean climate, so we're talking about very, very shallow soils. And these actually fruit, along with the figs. Once established, you'll pick a lot of wild figs, but they tend to be much smaller than the cultivated types, which require different conditions. Deeper soils, maybe a lot more moisture throughout the year. But the fruit tunnel is doing excellent, and there's actually less here than might be expected. There's hardly been any rain during the winter, but we are getting a rainstorm in the next few days, so I want to prepare for that, and that means putting down a load of manure.
Duty meets passion, the creative touch of hand and heart. The hours pan out, senseless to the real flow of energy. As wood turns to ash and ash to soil, so the wind stirs up another spirit. The death of one leads to the birth of another. His name is mythopoetic. Ride on, wind up, the journey's a hero's walker. Ride up and wind on, the land delays to reveal its person. Its many folds take the rider through a blurring sea. His face just a memory of countless dreams.
Yep, so take a look at this. This is my charcoal heap, And what you see behind it is the raised platform for the compost toilet and the wheelie bin underneath it, which I've just emptied out. Now I'm going to come to that in a second, but just check out the olive tree to the left of that, which is doing absolutely well because it's feeding off any leaching which is happening, and any other leaching will probably get absorbed by this big pile of biochar which I'm making. And you can see behind it the jasmine's just finishing flowering, and this eventually will climb all over the dry composting toilet. It's got absolutely wonderful scent. So at the moment it's a bit wasted there because no one can really smell it apart from the dogs maybe, but this is what I'm making. And not all of this is good for cooking. I like to select larger pieces for cooking because they burn much hotter and much more slowly. And then we come over to the straw pit, which has been decomposing with rabbit manure for a couple of years. And what you see there is the emptying out of the wheelie bin, and that is human manure mixed with charcoal. So every time someone goes for a poop here, they just throw a handful of crushed charcoal on top of the poo, and it naturally maintains a little bit of moisture in the wheelie bin, even though it's got drainage. That is super fertile. So lychees. So I planted this because I checked up and did some research to see whether they could grow in our environment, and they can. They need wind protection, that's for sure. They're subtropical plants and they want excellent drainage, and so do citrus fruits. So they have, in a strange way, quite similar requirements. So I've done a big hole here, and this hole was dug many years back, but I enlarged it, and when the plant that was in it originally died all those years ago, I just forgot about it. And what I had instead was this strange crop of weeds which had utilised the space, and especially from the added depth from the previous plant that used to be here. So I've made the hole bigger. I've added crushed charcoal and human manure, and added some of the local soil, which, as you can see, it's not infertile, it's just very dry and very sandy based. You can find clay in our environments, but one of the reasons why I'm using charcoal is because it actually traps nutrients, and people use charcoal to trap nutrients within swales where you get a lot of water runoff. So when there's flooding, for instance, nutrients move through the ground and they need to cling on through the action of, like ionization. And this is exactly what clay does. But charcoal, which is an inert, it's very low in fertility, will actually accumulate nutrients for the use of plant roots. So that's why I use them underneath plants itself. So lychees, for what type of conditions? Well, they say plant them on a mound because they hate being in boggy ground where ground may actually become waterlogged, and it stunts their growth. So good drainage, and you can see if I follow up this little ridge, this is how they cultivate land in Spain. They ridge up the stones along the Mediterranean coasts, just so they can create more flat land around the actual trees. So they've got to put the stone somewhere. If they're not making dry stone walls, like there you see, then they've got to ridge up the rest of it. So that creates a little bit of extra height, and also drainage, but also it warms up quicker. So if you're going to dig a hole in one of these ridges, then the best thing to do is actually dig deeper as well, and then you get the benefits of the extra height on top of that. So lychees won't produce for another 10 years, but so long as it gets a good start and the soil is maintained at acidic levels, around 6 or 5.5 pH, then I'm sure it's actually going to thrive in this little spot. Okay, so here, in preparation for the next planting, which is going to be a grapefruit, I've already used an electric jackhammer to actually drill a hole here and smash through some of this bedrock. And if you look at this bedrock, you can see how extensive it is. I've only actually gone down about maybe 30 to 40 centimeters, and the only way through it is actually to smash through it. There are certain plants that you can patiently wait for the root systems to do all the work for you, and that's an ongoing thing as well. That's why we are surrounded by plants which can adapt and grow very slowly. But here we're going to have put a grapefruit, and so we're looking for fertility and for free draining soil. So it's a mixture of human manure, rabbit manure, which is quite low in fertility, crushed charcoal, and just some of the local material that's come out of the hole. So this is a sad looking mandarin, possibly. I mean, it died back. A lot of trees have died back on this land, and I've given it a really good mulch of crushed charcoal there, but it's just really low on fertility. There's an imbalance in the soil here, so what I'm going to do is just give it a little top dressing. And even though rocks act as a very good mulch, in this instance, I don't know if they've really been that effective. The thing about citrus though is that they are prone to disease when it gets too dry. So what I'm going to do is just put in a top dress in there of human manure. And hopefully, when we get our rainstorm this week, we may get a few days of rain, proper rain I'm talking about. Some of those nutrients will get washed down. Okay, let's have a look at this almond tree. There's been a lot of disease in general happening in the Mediterranean just because of climate change, really. And we have just good years now and bad years, but it seems to be more bad years than good years nowadays. And you can see how almonds were affected. But they do come back from their root systems, which tend to survive. They resprout from their roots. And this will be another self-propagating tree here. It's probably about 10 years old now. But you can see it's already dying back at various places. The harder this climate change kicks in, the more we're going to get used to this idea of sudden death in trees. Now these certainly weren't killed by frost or anything like that. It's just generally disease. I've lost all of my plums on the land, so there was definitely something affecting the plum family. And you know, plums include peach, nectarines, apricots, and all of those. And even these cypress trees, some of them absolutely thriving. Look at that, all planted that more or less at the same time, and yet others stunted. And here's an example. I had a couple of these hazels. They died. Even with all that mulching around it and the shade of a big carob tree over the top of it, it just didn't like it. So, I mean, there are other factors, and one of them could be the fact that most of my dogs have a free hand here, and they can just literally go anywhere they want. And that's the problem, really. They use trees to pee up against, and this is one of their sort of grouping areas in the corner of the fence post here. Here she comes, here she comes. This is brother and sister, or sister and brother. This is the big boy. Alright, so they've just been out, as I say, they literally go around and have a free hand on other people's land as well, chasing off rabbits and hunters. Well, it's not the hunting season, but certainly they chase off wild pigs and stray dogs and all sorts. That's why I'm pretty cool here. So I've got a success story to tell. This is Membrillo, quince. This is Cytonia. So this is the variety that produces huge fruits. And for the first year, I'm going to get quite a lot of them. Enough maybe to give to my old man. Can make quince jelly. That's what we call membrillo. So a success story. And they really are adaptable to Catalonian environments, Mediterranean environments. That's probably why it's a local, speciality here, quince. Quince jelly, that is. So here's my hand of Buddha, another citrus, which threatened to give me fruit this year. Now that would be a miracle. All I can see on it though are flowers. And even though I'm having a really good year with the bees, I've just done some divisions and they're all thriving at the moment. I'm not really getting any real pollination happening on these citrus plants. This particular hand of Buddha was subject to a previous video, but if I go around, you can see I've planted these citrus on mounds also because they enjoy free draining soils. And this lemon is actually doing really well, considering it's had a lot of dog piss on it. I've seen them looking a lot worse than that. So all the citrus seem to be yellowing at the moment, and I just think that's a lack of rain, to be honest. And it's a stress factor on the plant. But it's also producing a lot of flower which doesn't give me any fruit. Maybe it's just time to give me a little boost. So that's why I'm using this human manure in expectation of my rainstorm. So I'm going to do it for the plants really which are looking sickly because I'm limited to as to how much of this I've got. And hopefully some of those nutrients will drain down into the roots further. Okay, so can you guess the name of this tree with those big leathery leaves? First time I spotted this tree was in London in one of my gardens. This is the Japanese loquat, Boulevard japonica, and they really do have a delicious fruit. So that's what they look like. Now that's a small one, and they can get really big, and you only really need one on your land. But because they take so long to grow, you plant a few of them up. So they're not like other fruits that take ages to fruit. What the size of that tree? Like other exotics like that lychee, it takes 10 years to produce, and pomegranate still haven't produced after all these years. These will give you fruits almost every year after planting, and they really are delicious. Maybe not to everyone's taste, but what I did find out about this, you can't find them in the shops, and that's weird. Why can't you find that fruit in a shop? And the reason being is because I remember one of my journeys, it was the Camino de Santiago. I picked loads of these, put them in a bag, in my basket, and within about a day they were all going rotten, and that's why. And there's a lot of fruits like that just don't keep. Once you've picked them, that's it. So some fruits demand that they're only foraged and not shelved. This is another successful story so far. I had a volunteer last year and he looked after the farm whilst I was back in the UK, and we did a little video call, and I told him, gave him some instructions. But generally when volunteers are intelligent and show a lot of initiative, they can work things out for themselves, and he actually impressed me so much. The planting was absolutely superb, and his work on other parts of the farm also. That's the type of volunteer I encourage, And he came here, planted a cherry in his honour. Did a really good job, as I say, and you can see it's actually come into flower. So we'll see if we get any cherries on this. See, the flowers come in first before the leaf breaks. So there's a lot of new shoots here, and this plant is in super healthy condition. And there's a little sucker of sorts coming out from the bottom there. I'll check that. If that's actually coming from the main stem, I may just leave it. I prefer bushes rather than what we call standard. So this is a standard tree. It's actually got a clear stem going all the way up. But I prefer bushes, especially Mediterranean climates, because they create their own shade. So we see, and being the second fruit of the year, cherry, and we have our cherry festivals here, we will see how well that does. So let's look at a pomegranate. And these are very, very virile trees. You can see the main stem. This is how you buy it, just a single stem, which was probably cut at that length, I'd say about 3 foot, and then propagated directly from that piece of wood. And then it wants to do that, produce huge amounts of basal growth. And that's how I want my trees to grow here, especially pomegranates. I mean, I will make good nesting sites also, but bushes that create shadow and actually more litterful, adding recycling fertility back into the soil underneath it. So this is the tree that my late mother planted. It's a pear of San John or San Juan, and it's a local pear, so it's a small pear but very juicy and sweet. So this thrived this year, and it was in sort of hello boy, you come to say hello. It was a bit of a contradiction, considering my mother never showed the same will to survive, but this one did, and this one survived when I gave it a good mulch. And it looks like it's going to be there for a long time now. It's adapted. It's been there also for the last 6 years. So let's say that that's another success story. So eucalyptus, and eucalyptus survive. They go much more slowly in shallow soils. Wood is produced, which is much more durable, hard. You can build with it. But this is a particular type of eucalyptus. This is a medicinal type. And if you can look at the leaves, you can see how dainty they are, but silvery as well, to help reflect excessive heat, which is why eucalyptus can thrive in very hot, dry, semi-arid environments. So I'm planting to try and beat the system, we call it that. So here, poor Mungo was buried. Mungo, who had leishmania, went blind, and I'm hoping he's giving a lot more nutrient to anything I plant here. And this is an interesting tree I bought online. So this is a New Zealand Christmas tree, drought resistant, fantastic flowers. It's a bee tree. Grows huge once established. Look, I've grown it in this old barrel, rusting away. The roots won't have hit the ground yet. I doubt it anyway. So it can obviously survive. And then lo and behold, I planted some yucca roots. I'm sure I planted those 3 years ago and nothing happened. And then all of a sudden that popped up. Now I'm not really sure if that is a yucca, but we will wait and see. But why not? It's making use of poor old Mungo there. Now I've seen walnuts growing here very successfully, but this one is rather quite a bit in the open and maybe too much exposure to full sun. Although saying that, there's a big hole underneath this tree, and that's probably keeping it alive. Its neighbour died. The other walnut died. So I'm hoping this is going to bush out. As you can see, it's produced a lot of lower growth. And that's what I want, a small bush. So let's have a look at this. Well, you can see there's a dry stone wall around this. I raised the soil level by an extra foot or two. And this almond is absolutely thriving for it. So when you give them that little bit of extra moisture, they seem to be doing really well. So it's a combination of stress caused by lack of water and disease vulnerability because of lack of water. So I'm going to finish here. Paulownia. Obviously, when you buy it, it's much bigger than that. You spend a lot more money for it. But even in winter, this wasn't watered whilst I was away, and it was a dry winter again. But this is the Empress. This tree is a wonderful flowering tree. Once I can get it established, it will be a grand site for the entrance to my my caravan up top there, and next to that the temple to Gaia.
The setting sun has disappeared, among her breast it falls. The road meanders as a snake to its death. But in that dappled shade beyond the crest of a hill, I'd see it a second time from the temple of a flesh. Second sunset, diminishing beneath the sea, as if passing away the time it quenches the day's flight. Dragging with it a gusty wind that cools the skin of the land. As nature draws in a silhouette, is a night black and tan. Why from this ancient spot, upon her prostrate navel, I am stood in full view of her boundless verdant scape, reaching up at every turn of my wispy view. But then taken up in the cradle of her bosom, sucking. Ride on, wind on, the journey's a hero's welcome. And wind up and wind on, the land undulates to reveal its person. Its many foes take the rider through a blurring sea. His face just a memory of countless dreams.